Thank you for joining us on This Week in Turkey. I am Murat, Tursan. Tonight, refugees in Turkey are once again the talk of town, and President Erdoğan finally backs down from his pro-refugee position amidst public pressure. We'll have Dr. İhsan Dağı to give us a rundown of what's going on. In other news, there may be a storm brewing inside the ruling party. Victory Party chair Ümit Özdağ drops by Medyascope. Mob boss Sedat Peker mystery deepens. The rent crisis is out of control, and the freedom of speech is once again front and center as a young man is arrested over a tweet. Our main story tonight, as far as we know, there are 3.7 million refugees in Turkey today, and a very strong anti-refugee sentiment has been brewing for quite some time. Now, typically, one would think of refugee and immigrant issues as a right versus left issue, but in Turkey, it has turned mainstream. Virtually every public opinion poll says that Turks overwhelmingly want Syrians out of Turkey, and it's not at all divided by party lines. Over 80% of respondents say that they want refugees to return home. And of course, the opposition has been capitalizing on this for quite some time. The coalition says that they will send refugees home despite not really laying down a solid plan on how to do it. And of course, there is an entire party whose platform is based on sending refugees home. That's Ümit Özdağ's Victory Party, who was in the studio yesterday. President Erdoğan, despite the disdain of his base, has long held the position that Turkey should welcome refugees. That is until this week. Erdoğan finally backed off from his long-held position on refugees, and oddly enough, at a Ramadan dinner where he hosted delegates. Well, regardless of the setting, this will surely go down as a major one on the list of President Erdoğan's legendary backpedals. Dr. Dağı will be joining us in just a little bit to give us a little rundown of the matter. But before that, let's do a recap of the week.
According to the data from the Refugees Association, as of March 24, 2022, there are 3,754,591 Syrian refugees under temporary protection status registered in Turkey. The matter of Syrian refugees has been a major political issue in Turkey since the beginning of the Syrian civil war, and the conversation has shifted further and further against refugees and migrants in Turkey, sometimes leading to violent clashes and outright riots. President Erdoğan has long been a staunch supporter of refugees in Turkey, saying, "The opposition leaders and supporters of our beautiful country say that when we win the election, we are going to send the refugees back. Well, we are not going to send them back, because we know very well the plights of Ansars and Muhajirs. We will continue to be hosts. We are not worried about this." On Tuesday, however, at an official Ramadan dinner where President Erdoğan hosted ambassadors, his rhetoric was markedly different. Erdoğan announced, "We are doing our best for the voluntary and honorable return of our Syrian brothers to their homes." Main opposition party CHP chair Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, on the anti-refugee side of the fence, commented on his party's group meeting on Tuesday. "The refugees who went home to visit during Ramadan can stay there." Kılıçdaroğlu went on to say, "He flipped in 3 days. Boy, what a spine. What does this show us? It shows us how right we are. It shows us that it is CHP who will defend this country's interest till the very end, because we will send them back on their own free will." Ruling party coalition partner MHP chair Devlet Bahçeli, however, accused Kılıçdaroğlu of politicizing the refugee issue and called him a provocator. Kılıçdaroğlu responded to Bahçeli, "Right, so when Erdoğan does a 180, his minority partner also has to do a 180. Mr. Bahçeli, after these refugees visit home for the holidays, they are going to return. And who will bring them back but Interior Minister Süleyman Soylu, the person you support, the man who turned our borders into a highway. But he isn't bothered by refugees. He has no time. He is too busy posing for pictures with drug barons."
Joining me now, Professor and Dr. İhsan Dağı. Doctor, I know you're on a tight schedule, so thanks for being able to join us tonight.
Welcome.
Now, Doctor, earlier we talked about how public opposition to Syrian refugees in Turkey has gotten to be practically mainstream. There are a lot of terms being thrown around here that in the West you might hear at a Trump or a Le Pen rally. Open borders, the great replacement theory, and alike. I mean, we even have a border wall. Now, let's see how we got here first. Turkey is home to over 3.7 million Syrian refugees. President Erdoğan was very famously pro-Syrian refugee until this very week. So would you say that there really was an open border policy in Turkey? Was the government really planning on changing the demographics in the country? And how did Turkey get to be the largest refugee hosting country in the world under AKP? Your thoughts?
Right. Yes. These are really big questions. The problem is that Turkey has received around 5 million refugees over last 10 years. And this is a number that extremely hard for Turkey to observe. I mean, in 10 years, in fact, no other country could observe and integrate 5 million, maybe 6 million refugees coming to the country. Economically speaking, socially and culturally, it is extremely difficult really to integrate such amount of refugees within a decade coming to a country. In the Turkish case, that was not really surprised because some 10 years ago, following the Arab Spring, the Turkish government just wanted a regime change in Syria, I mean, that is the origin of this inflow of refugees that we received from Syria, amounting to 3.7 million people. That was basically driven by the Turkish government's search to change the regime in Turkey. By doing this, the government, in fact, wanted to demonstrate that the Assad regime didn't really have popular support. So people people in Syria would outflow Turkey, voting with their feet, showing that they do not support the Assad regime. That was the objective. Plus, refugee camps that were set up in Turkey following 2011 also served to train militias, Syrian army, to go back and fight against the Assad regime. These were really the objectives on the part of the Turkish government that triggered a refugee crisis in Turkey. But at the end, Assad survived and started to kick those people who were opposing their regime. So Turkey ended up with 3.7 million people living in Turkey. And these generated really serious problems in Turkey. Economic burden on the one hand, but on the other hand, there were really serious concerns. But as far as the economy is concerned, nowadays we hear a lot about refugees. Government as well as opposition parties are now talking about returning refugees back to their country. But these are really difficult. But I think they are responding to the public sentiment that people have really gone against the presence of refugees in Turkey. In fact, according to some surveys, around 85% of people want refugees return to their country. So Turkish politicians, the government and opposition leaders grant really their policies on this public sentiment that people do not want refugees staying in Turkey. It has, I think, a lot to do with economic crisis. Turkey is going through a serious economic crisis in which inflation is around 65%, 61%. Officially, there is a high unemployment, especially youth unemployment is extremely higher. So in such an economic circumstances, people are looking for a scapegoat, like in Europe, like in the United States. People are just trying to find someone on whom they can blame their economic hardship. So refugees appear as really easy target to put the blame on for economic hardship. Apart from that, there are also concerns on the part of Turkish opposition parties, particularly, who want those refugees being sent back to their countries, and also concerns of the people themselves that Turkish government has been issuing citizenship to Syrian refugees. In fact, officially speaking, there are, I think, over 200,000 Syrian refugees have been naturalized. So those people are going to vote in elections. And I think many oppositional figures, political leaders, and public at large are concerned that actual number of citizenship given to Syrian refugees are much higher than the official 200,000 citizenship given to the Syrian refugees. So their concern is that this amount of refugees turn into Turkish citizens being able to vote in elections, and that may influence the outcome of the elections, which is going to be a very critical elections in 2023. So, and probably the competition is going to be extremely tight between the opposition and the ruling party. So people are concerned that the Syrians voting in favor of Tayyip Erdoğan as president will tip the balance in Turkey. So they are concerned about it as well. But there is also, I think, another dimension to this debate about the refugees in Turkey, which is the thing that Turkey is undergoing a democratic change. People think that Turkey has become more and more Middle Eastern, if you like, look less Western, less secular, and more Middle Eastern. So this demographic change is also, I think, generating some concern among some people. At the moment, Syrian refugees only make up 5% of population in Turkey. With other refugees coming from Afghanistan, Iraq, Somalia, Iran, probably at the moment in Turkey, we may have some 7% of refugees living in Turkey. So all these, I think, somehow generate a concern that refugees are being used as part of a social engineering on the part of the government. But there is this great pressure on political actors, political parties for the return of refugees back to their countries. But we know that this is not going to be easy. But still, political parties are being really populist, responding to the public sentiment and promising that they will return those Syrian refugees back to their country. And especially opposition parties, the main opposition parties, in fact, CHP and the EU party, are promising their voters that they will do that through peaceful means. They will do that by making an agreement with Assad and securing their life and well-being in Syria. But we know from various research in Turkey that Syrian refugees are not really willing to go back voluntarily because simply for 10 years they have settled in Turkey. They have established their business, they have their job, they have their kids going to schools, they have healthcare. So they have settled in Turkey. So it's going to be extremely difficult really for them to go back. Besides, we know that right from the beginning, 2011 onwards, there were around 750,000 Syrian refugee babies born in Turkey. So, I mean, when we look at also the average age of the Syrian refugees in Turkey, we see that the average age is at 22. So almost half of the Syrian refugees have no memories of Syria. They don't really consider Syria as their home country. So it's going to be extremely difficult for them to volunteer to go back to Syria, where their houses were destroyed, their business disappeared, and they are likely to receive not very warm welcome by the regime forces. So things are really complicated. So out of this complication, I think some political parties, some political actors try to use this public sentiment to gain some political gains. But overall, I think what we see in Turkey is that these refugees, Syrians and non-Syrians, Afghans and others, have become really visible in Turkey. And their visibility also increase some form of social reaction. But so far, social peace and harmony are still maintained in Turkey. I think that is extremely important, that Turkish people should be sensible in their response towards the Syrians. They can put forward their political demands and expect from the government or from their political parties to secure a way to a way for a safe return for them back to their countries. But I think they have refrained from engaging in violent actions against refugees, despite some exceptions. Some incidents occurred, some kind of violence against refugees in Turkey. But I hope that this recent discussion about refugees wouldn't provoke similar violent actions against the Syrian refugees. But overall, just in order to sum up, I would say that there is a refugee problem in Turkey. If the Turkish government, Turkish political actors do not address these refugee questions, the question may get really out of hand, and kind of xenophobic, anti-migrant sentiment may give way to a rather authoritarian and fascistic political formations in Turkey. That is really my concern. Apart from that, we should also, I think, note that with the presence of refugees in Turkey, amounting to 5 million, maybe to 6 million, Turkey's social and cultural space significantly transformed. And AKP, as the ruling party, I think somehow encouraged this process of social and cultural change brought about by the presence of refugees in Turkey. What I'm saying is that refugees, mainly coming from Muslim countries, overwhelmingly Muslims, displaying their conservative way of life, conservative values in social space, significantly narrowed and transformed Turkey's social and cultural space. When you look at, for instance, some cities in Turkey, Istanbul, Mersin, Urfa, you see that demography have significantly changed. Not only demography, but social and cultural life have significantly been influenced by the presence of refugees. And those cities look less Western and secular and more Middle Eastern and Islamic. Just take the example of İstiklal Caddesi in Istanbul, Pera. Pera used to be the heart of Western secular lifestyle in Turkey. But at the moment, we know that İstiklal Caddesi, Pera had become something else. And Pera and some other places in Turkey appear more Middle Eastern, more Islamic, and less Western and secular. This also, I think, caused some concern among especially the secular parts of Turkish population.
I see.
They tend to regard that AKP has been pursuing a deliberate social engineering project by encouraging Muslim immigration into Turkey so that it could change social and cultural framework of the Turkish Republic.
Yes. Dr. I see. Now, last question real quick. We're a little tight on time. Now, you mentioned that this was AKP's somewhat of a plan that formed over time, that they were trying to push a little bit of demographic change. Now, President Erdoğan has finally changed his tune on the subject, right? He was very pro-refugee, and finally, he caved to public pressure because, as you mentioned, 85% of the population is unified on the subject that they really don't want this demographic change. Now, real fast, your opinion, does Erdoğan really mean it? Is he really backpedaling, or is this just talk to calm down his voter base? Your thoughts?
I think there is a significant public pressure. These 85% people who do not want to live together with the refugees, they want them going back to their countries, are also supporters of the AKP. So AKP's open door policy did not really politically strengthen the position of the ruling party. They are, I think, they've been suffering from this question. This also played, I think, some role in the elections in Istanbul, for instance, in which the ruling party lost elections. The people reacting to AKP's open door policy, I think, punished the AKP voting for Ekrem İmamoğlu in Istanbul elections. So probably looking at various public opinion survey and also listening to the people and MPs coming from provinces, I think Erdoğan have realized that refugees are not really asset for the ruling party in the upcoming election, despite the fact that they may get overwhelming votes from those Syrian refugees who turn into Turkish citizens. But I think more are likely to vote against AKP on the migration question. So for the ruling party, despite, I think, the fact that they somehow calculated some benefits in terms of social and cultural transformation of Turkey from the refugees, now realizing the political risks involved in pursuing an open door policy. So it seems that I think they have abandoned this open door policy at the moment, but they are at the moment not really able to secure borders to halt immigrant inflows. So this is a problem. So despite now the changing policy of the government, they are not really able to stop increasing numbers of refugees in Turkey. And obviously they are, I think, not convincing when they said that they are going to negotiate with, say, Assad to secure a safe return of refugees. For that matter, Assad would not really reach any kind of agreement with Tayyip Erdoğan, whom I think he regards as the very causes of all this trouble in the region.
I see. Dr. İhsan Dağı, thank you for your take, and thank you for being able to join us today. I know that you had a tight schedule, so it was a treat having you.
Welcome. Bye-bye.
And continuing on with domestic politics, Turkey gets hacked, and a few people having nothing to do with it go down for it. A hacker group leaked 50 gigs of citizens' private information, everything from names, addresses, and tax records, and journalist İbrahim Haskaloğlu was placed under arrest for being in possession of the leaked data. Mind you, he didn't actually do the hack. He was just in the possession of data that was leaked onto the internet. But that's not even the story. This arrest may have unearthed a rift in the factions inside of the ruling government. So, as far as we know, there are multiple factions in the AKP vying for power. There are the old guard, the National Vision guys. Then there are people more aligned with Interior Minister Süleyman Soylu, whose presidential aspirations have been rumored for quite some time now. And these guys don't like each other. But what was supposed to be a quiet inter-party squabble comes to the surface this week when the Speaker of the National Assembly, Ali Şentop, loses it on a famous pro-AKP Twitter user thought to be in the Süleyman Soylu camp. The Twitter user posts a photo of Şentop and Haskaloğlu and says something to the effect of, "Don't forget to visit your friend in prison." But what might seem pretty innocuous to an outside observer might be animosity bubbling to the surface within the party. Now, the user publicly apologized afterward, but it doesn't look like the rift inside the AKP is going to go away anytime soon. Let's go to the details.
Many speculated about further rifts inside AKP this week when a famous pro-AKP user thought to be connected inside of the government took aim at Mustafa Şentop, Speaker of the Grand National Assembly. Cumhur Frankfurt posted a picture of Şentop with the now arrested journalist İbrahim Haskaloğlu taken after an interview. Haskaloğlu was arrested for reporting on the major government hack that potentially leaked the private information of millions of people. The famous Twitter user Cumhur Frankfurt posted a picture of Şentop and Haskaloğlu and tweeted, "Your friend needs cigarettes and fresh underwear." Turkish jail slang telling him to visit his friend in prison. Şentop responded to their tweet first saying, "Cumhur Frankfurt, don't be insolent." Then, tweeting a second time, "I have usually ignored trolls until today. This is the first time I'm breaking my principle. But sometimes it is necessary to respond to those who appear to be on your team, but then do a hit on you." Answering journalist questions on the subject, Şentop described the tweet as a social media attack. Ankara is a small place. Everyone knows who owns who. When I was exposed to the social media attack, my MP friends advised, "Don't answer, talk to the owner." But I did not find that to be appropriate. I do straight politics. Şentop went on to say that he would not let go of the issue. Responding to if this was a clash within the party, Şentop replied, "Some think that they will gain political power by pretending to be from the same political group and antagonizing people for their own gain. This must not be allowed to happen." Fast forward to Wednesday night, Twitter user Cumhur Frankfurt posted on Twitter, "I just spoke to our Speaker of the Assembly, Mustafa Şentop, and told him that I had overstepped my bounds due to the wording style unique to Cumhur Frankfurt and that I was not affiliated with any party. Thankfully, he was wise and understanding. I wanted to apologize in public."
Continuing on with politics, Chair of Victory Party Ümit Özdağ paid us a visit yesterday. Ümit Özdağ's Victory Party is known as a single-platform party, and that platform is anti-immigration. No doubt everyone in Turkey has heard of Özdağ by now. Last week, we covered Özdağ when he announced that his party's candidate would be no other than Mansur Yavaş, CHP's Ankara mayor, which is rather unorthodox because parties don't usually nominate candidates from other parties. We'll have a clip of Özdağ in just a little bit, but let's get to know the man first. Ümit Özdağ pretty much was born into politics. His father was a close ally of the Nationalist Movement Party, or MHP's founder, Alp Türkeş. In 2006, Özdağ made a bid for the leadership position of the MHP, but was shot down. The incumbent was the current chair, Devlet Bahçeli. In 2015, he was elected as a member of the Central Executive Committee and an MP. In 2016, he was dismissed from the party after calling for a Congress due to the heavy defeat MHP had suffered in 2015 elections. In 2021, he founded the Victory Party. Medyascope editor-in-chief Ruşen Çakır had Ümit Özdağ in the studio yesterday where he asked him about his party's anti-immigration, anti-refugee platform, as well as who he holds responsible for Turkey's current immigration crisis. Let's take a look at that video.
Now, I want to ask you this. You brought this matter into headlines, or rather, this matter that was already making headlines.
Look, the Turkish people were concerned about this issue. We became a voice for the public.
Could the opposite be true?
No, we became a voice for the public. Was the Turkish public not worried before but became concerned after we told them about the issue?
Well, you...
No. Look, you are a man who knows politics. If a problem doesn't really exist, no matter what you do, no matter how much media power you have, you can't attain that result.
Alright, then who is responsible for this problem?
The main culprit for this problem is Recep Tayyip Erdoğan and Davutoğlu.
Yes, but there's also a picture here like You extend this responsibility to everyone, including the opposition.
We accuse the opposition for this reason. The Turkish people have this problem. They have this problem. And you don't present this problem. Look, the CHP prepared a 150-page report in 2021 under the leadership of 13 MPs, a party vice chair, and 13 assembly personnel advisors. This is what they came up with. We are going to set up a refugee integration ministry, and we are going to give passports to the refugees. Look, 85–90% of the Turkish people want them to go back home. People from all political parties. Despite HDP saying that they should stay, a major part of HDP voters say that they should leave.
And on to Sedat Peker, mob boss, government agent, whistleblower, YouTube star. Regardless of your opinion of him, that's an unmatched job description. Over the course of a few months in 2021, he alleged that the son of the former Minister of Interior Mehmet R murdered a Kazakh woman, and that R himself was involved in another murder, a case of the North Cypriot journalist Kutlu Adalı. Also that R, along with former Prime Minister Binali Yildirim and his son, was involved in drug trafficking. He also alleged government involvement in supplying weapons to Al-Qaeda in Syria and so much more dirty laundry. So no wonder Peker was on the run. Peker had been hiding out in Dubai and after a while stopped posting videos when he got a visit from the UAE authorities. Just a little while before Turkey and UAE were re-establishing diplomatic ties, oddly enough. And everyone had been waiting to see when Peker would post videos again. Well, Peker's attorney, Ersan Barkın, spoke to Medyascope, and Peker says that he's going to start posting again next year, closer to the presidential election, and explains what's been going on with the infamous whistleblower. Let's go to that story now.
The infamous government-connected mob boss Sedat Peker made headlines last year when he posted a series of YouTube videos from the United Arab Emirates, alleging everything from corruption to criminal activity at the highest levels of the Turkish government. However, Peker has been silent since November of last year. According to Peker's lawyer Ersan Barkın, an agreement was made between him and the UAE authorities, but he will begin posting again closer to the Turkish presidential election in 2023. When asked why Peker stopped releasing videos, Barkın answered, he abides by the gentleman's agreement with the United Arab Emirates that he must comply with. As far as I know, this is not a written agreement. However, last year, a request was made that he not post due to fears of political consequences. He acted accordingly, given the situation. The main reason for this demand is related to his safety. Responding to if there is a chance Peker could be extradited to the UAE, Barkın stated, the issue of his extradition is purely political. Our legal opinion is, first, there is a red notice request, and this request has not been finalized yet. Second, there is no extradition agreement between the United Arab Emirates and Turkey. Thirdly, the United Arab Emirates is not a party to any international extradition treaty, but of course, he may still be extradited, even though there is no formal agreement. There are many examples of this. It depends on the political relationship between the Turkish state and the UAE.
So the refugee crisis refuses to leave the headlines, but we are going to be talking about a different crisis because this is Turkey and we're never short of those. And this one, of course, being the rental crisis. This week, Medyascope interviewed realtors in coastal cities to see if rental prices were up as much as 200% like we reported on last week. And you guessed it, they have confirmed it. As a matter of fact, some real estate agents say that it is as high as 300%. But to be clear, realtors aren't saying Syrians are the reason. Last week, we covered a CHP MP from Istanbul stating that foreigners were to blame for the obscene price hikes, saying that up to 30 to 50% of new development was being snatched up by non-citizens. Now, at the time, we assumed that he was talking about Syrians, but not so. Realtors down in the coastal cities are saying it's actually Russians who are snatching up homes and driving up prices and demand. According to the agents, Russians escaping the sanctions are renting houses on short-term contracts, trying to use Turkey as a home base to get to Europe, and tripling rental prices in the meanwhile. Let's go to that story.
Due to the unprecedented increase in rental prices in coastal cities, low and fixed income tenants find it impossible to both pay their rent and find a new home. Alp Emeç, a realtor in Antalya, explained that the rent prices have increased by more than 100% and said that the quality of housing has decreased gradually and that evictions are at an all-time high. Another Antalya realtor, Mert Kahraman, stated that the housing prices have gone up 200%. A unit that was listed for 2,000 liras last year is now up to 4,000 liras. One of the highest increases is seen in Muğla, one of the nation's most touristic hotspots. Realtor Nilgun Miaz said that the prices are up 300% in the last 12 months. Miaz said that one of the reasons for the enormous increases are Russians escaping sanctions who temporarily take up residence in Turkey. Since the start of the war, a lot of white-collar Russians have been renting houses here. They are escaping the economic sanctions. They usually do 3 to 6 months or a 1-year contract, and they use Turkey as a jumping-off point to get to Europe.
So we have yet another arrest over a Twitter post in Turkey. In January, journalist Sedat Peker was arrested on charges of insulting the president on TV when she recited a proverb that the government took offense to. The proverb goes, "When an ox moves into a palace, he does not become a king, but the palace becomes a barn." So this Saturday, a 20-year-old college student and a youth member of E-Party Alp Emeç was also arrested when he posted the very same proverb on Twitter. Emeç reported that he was called in by the police to give a statement. He was told that this was simply a statement and no charges would be pursued. But according to Emeç, he was later approached by a woman and told that he was being transferred to the criminal court. Emeç still remains in custody today over the tweet. Emeç spoke to Medyascope from prison and said these words. "I was feeling hopeless at first. I don't know how long my sentence will be. I don't know how long I'm going to be here. The uncertainty makes me lose hope. If they told me I would be here for a year, that would make me feel better. But when I realized that I could make my voice heard and that I had garnered support, I felt hope. I am no longer hopeless." Now, Sedat Peker, after being sentenced to over 4 years, was released, and one would hope the same fate for Emeç as well. But it once again brings the issue of freedom of speech in Turkey front and center, rather the issue that there actually is none when the government can imprison people just based on inference, let alone actual direct speech. Now, E-Party says that once they're in power, they will abolish the law that criminalizes insulting the president. But one could ask if that alone is sufficient for the functioning of a free and modern state. But without getting too much into the opinion side of things, let's go ahead and end things here. That's it for us in This Week in Turkey. I have Murat, Tursan, and thank you for joining us.
Türkiye'nin sivil, bağımsız, özgür ve çoğulcu bir medya ortamına ihtiyacı var. Medyascope 20 Ağustos 2015'te bu ihtiyacı karşılamak üzere yola çıktı. Ama yolumuz uzun. Bu yolculukta bize Patreon veya YouTube'un katıl butonu üzerinden katkıda bulunabilirsiniz. Destek verin, sizinle güçlenelim.